Last episode, we set up a honey farm with the help of some bees, as well as a limestone and calcite factory using the honey from said honey farm. And in this episode, with the help of Aquatic Ambitions, I'm building a rundown Lapis and Prismarine factory with the help of some conduits. But yes, welcome back everyone. Our honey farm has been slowly producing the honey to a point where this river is now almost full, and I haven't been able to play that much between videos, so this is a decent amount considering. And then over in our limestone farm and calcite too, things are going pretty well. I've set up a threshold switch for our cobblestone gen to make sure it doesn't overproduce, and I like semi-fixed the lava situation. This is now always full, which is good, because before we were having issues of it filling up, even with the tough factory off, which it is currently. But essentially what I've done is on any kind of major junction, I've added these like fluid tanks, because as far as I'm aware with Create, these pipes work that if they have a split for whatever reason, like we have over here, the lava will get like essentially just split in two. And so if you have like several splits going down a pipe, it eventually just gets to a point where like there's not much lava left at the end. And I think having the fluid tank kind of like tricks the system into like resetting that back to full again. I don't know if that's true. I might be just lying. I don't know. But it at least fixed our problem. Now, of course, like what I said in the intro, we are going to be making some Prismarine and Lapis today. And you may remember from last episode that I was going to bring our gravel out from our line over here. And the reasoning for that is to make our Prismarine shards first. We of course can use Lapis, but with Create Aquatic Ambitions, that's kind of hard to say, we can use a conduit to turn flint into our Prismarine shards, which is going to be obviously way easier. And of course, to make a conduit, we are going to need a bunch of nautilus shells and a heart of the sea. And like for us, I did already have a heart of the sea when I was adventuring earlier in the series, but I don't quite have enough shells yet. And that's what these suspicious rocks are going to be for, because when we take these suspicious rocks, we can break them down into some bone meal or bones, and also a small chance to get nautilus shells. So we can certainly do that just to get the nautilus shells we need. And then to get our lapis, we more or less simply just need to break down either normal Prismarine or Prismarine bricks. I think I'll be doing Prismarine bricks, just for the pure reason that we also get some additional copper and some more experience as well, and like I will always take more experience. Now I'm definitely thinking of building it down here somewhere, although I may possibly build a little bit of a cliff up here so we get a bit more of a flat area, just so it's a bit easier to build on. And then I think a cliff kind of like that's going to work. I just need to kind of texture it, add some grass on top, and then we can start building our actual building. There we go, there is our decorated cliffs with some more leaves and stuff. We do have a little bit of grass change up here because we are heading towards the Moonlight Valley. But considering I kind of want this to look a little bit run down, it almost looks a little bit like pollution maybe? I don't know. It will be fine. Now as for our building over here, I do want it to be a bit of a unique shape. And by that, I mean kind of more 45-degree angles and other angles rather than just, you know, your typical 90 degrees like I have with my other buildings. And honestly, the main reason I want to do that is I installed a new mod called Create Bits and Bobs, and for one, it has these weathered metal girders, which are just like the normal girders, but you know, weathered. And I've honestly been really looking forward to these being added to the normal ones, so really happy about that. Then there's also these weathered girder struts. I can show those off real quick by extending this up a little bit. And you know, your typical girder, it goes in a straight line, it's fine, nothing too amazing. But with these other ones, we can actually have it go at different angles, and honestly, I love this. I've been wanting to have this kind of thing for honestly ages, and Steam and Rails kind of has its own thing with the tracks and being able to use the monorail tracks to kind of emulate this. But one, we don't have Steam and Rails, and two, they're like too big, so I'm very, very excited about these. And the nice thing about these as well is that you can kind of play around with them a little bit. So for example, if I have this go towards the ground, I can kind of make it look like this broke at some point and is now, you know, just hanging down towards the ground. And I think that'll help with the abandoned fill that I'm going for. And we can even use some blocks like this to connect up to them, and then remove the block in between. And we can have another kind of different style broken strut. Overall, I love this. I'm probably going to be making a lot of my other factories look maybe slightly more worn down than usual. I don't know. We'll see how long I obsess over these too much for. Yes, if I build up the rest of these pillars for now, I can get more of an idea of what kind of shape I want for this building. We can obviously use our girder struts to connect up some of these other parts as well. I think something along those lines should be good for now. Now I just want to properly place down some of these mossy bricks, which I am going to use a mixture of the typical mossy ones, some cracked ones, and also just, you know, normal bricks as well. I think I do want to use these diorite bricks and pale oak plank bricks, just like how I did on my limestone factory. And of course, use our weathered window panes again, because I always love these. I've kind of wrapped that design around for now. And as for our second floor, or third, depending on how you want to count it, I want to use some of this mangrove wood just to add a bit of splash of color, I think. And I think I'm going to go for something along these lines. Maybe some trapdoors at the top here just to add a bit of texture difference. And yeah, I think this is taking shape quite well. I added some of this kind of mossy stone bricks on top, some leaves, etc., putting on the bottoms as well, and obviously still need to build the rest of the building and decorate as well. But now I think I'm going to complete the rest of it off camera and bring it back in a second. And there we go, that is done for the most part. I have obviously finished all the other walls and added a roof on top. We have this new entranceway with a path coming down from our limestone farm into here with a bunch of these weathered girders again that are, you know, a little bit broken. We have some holes in the roof and some water pouring through as well. Some old broken walkways on top. And then obviously through our holes in the roof, we have some water tanks as well, just for that extra bit of decoration. And then one addition I did make to this building is also this thing over here. One thing I've been actually needing as well is a proper kelp farm. And I figured, considering we're right next to the water, that it would probably make sense to actually kind of make it part of this build as well. So I'm going to have to throw in some kelp in there at some point, including all the contraption to make that work. But yeah, overall, I'm actually really pleased with this. I think I did a pretty good job at making this kind of look a little bit abandoned and old, with the use of like the water coming off the roof, outside of the pipe going into it. And I think I will at some point go through in with some copycat stairs to kind of add a few holes in the walls. But for now, I like to actually start with the create contraptions part of this. And the first thing I like to do is actually bring down this belt to our other factory over here. And I'll probably bring the power down through here with some chain drives and have that come straight into a mill so we can change that into flint. Of course, we can have a belt coming out. Make sure to power that as well. I think actually I'm going to throw down a brass tunnel here just to make the entrance to that look a little bit better. And of course, to actually make our Prismarine shards, we are going to need a conduit, which of course is the heart of the sea and nautilus shells. So I am indeed going to grab a couple of stacks of this suspicious rock, head back to my warehouse over here to give them a bit of a wash, see what we get out of them. And that got us a bunch of bone meal, some bones, and quite a few nautilus shells. So I think should at least have one more in here. Certainly do. And then if we grab my heart of the sea, we can then put it all together to get our conduit. Now you see that gave us a new recipe because we have this conduit cage, which is what we're going to actually be using instead of a typical conduit. And for that, I'm going to need some of these Prismarine alloy rods and just alloy. And to make this, I need some copper nuggets and some Prismarine. Now, of course, I don't actually have any Prismarine yet. So the way I'm going to do that for now is actually grab some Lapis and haunt it, because I do at least have quite a bit of Lapis at this moment in time. So we'll grab that and throw that into our haunter over here. And then with that done, we get a bunch of shards and crystals. And then I already have some copper ingots, so we'll change those to nuggets. We'll make our Prismarine for what we already have, and then make a few alloys. Now each one of these rods requires 2 of those. We need 5 of them, so that's actually going to be pretty much all of these. So I'm actually going to need a little bit more lapis. There we go, now we have enough alloy. Then we can make our conduit cage. And I think what I want to do with this cage is actually put it into a kind of water tank of sorts, which I'm probably going to place over here. And I think I want to make it look a bit run down, kind of like the rest of this building as well. Maybe something simple like that will work. I think if we bring our belt all the way through, there we go. And then I think I'm just going to place our conduit cage there. Now the thing is going to need a water source to actually run. And while this area I think is going to be filled with water, I am probably just going to stick a pipe going underground into just a infinite water source. And there we go, there is that hooked up. Even has this nice little particle effect going on. But I did have to move it out from the belt because you can only put water from underneath, it turns out. So I'm probably going to have to change the system up a little bit just to make sure that things are actually being channeled properly. Okay. After a few adjustments, I came up with a different design, putting the conduit back in the middle, but using a vault to kind of get around not being able to pass it straight through. And I think I'll place a fan over here. So now anything along this belt line should get channeled by our cage. Now I was originally going to fill this up with water, but I don't actually know if it's going to work, or at least it might look a bit weird. So perhaps I should keep with more of the abandoned vibe and just make it seem like this is just an old water tank rather than one that's actually filled. Okay, yeah, I grabbed some coral and placed it around and allowed it to die, and then put in a couple of little small water holes and even threw in some fish as well. But now the next thing to do is to actually get gravel coming down here, which to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised it already isn't, considering this is open, but perhaps I can just switch this to round robin. I may have to just place this down again, perhaps. Oh, actually, no, I know what's wrong. Although this is definitely not what I wanted either. There we go. Let's place that back on, and now we should be good. I just had the belts facing the wrong way. With the gravel moving, this should now be processing it. I think I may need to add flint actually onto this, just to make sure that it's leaving. And I guess I don't need this to be 64, we can make it 32. But if we throw the flint that I just picked up and give that a watch, you can see it's starting to be processed. And it definitely takes a second, but there we go. There is our Prismarine shards. Step 1 done. Now the next thing I need to do is make some Prismarine bricks, which is literally just compacting 9 Prismarine shards. But I also want to make the normal Prismarine as well, which is just the 4. So we're going to make 2 of them. We'll have our 2 basins and mechanical presses, and I'll probably have those face each other. And then if we throw a brass tunnel down, we can split that into 2. If I grab some of these shards and quickly make normal Prismarine as well as Prismarine bricks, we can set these recipes up to make sure that they're making the right thing. Make sure to add our funnels in, and then if we throw in a shaft and some chain drives, you can bring that straight through the middle to power those. So now if I quickly attach these together, that is now making the 2 respective different Prismarine blocks. Now I would also like to make dark Prismarine, but it does need black dye. And I think what I may have to do is actually make some charcoal, which obviously we can do from our wood logs. So perhaps I could bring around some of these chain conveyors and bring them inside here so we can pull directly from our wood farm. I'll just have to make sure that it isn't taking in too many, I think. So I think I'm going to extend these chain drives over, perhaps bringing it through the wall around about here. And if we get in another basin here, as well as a belt, and throw down some of our dark prismarine to make sure this is actually crafting that. And then we are going to need to be able to place the dye into the side here. So I guess I'm going to remove this for now. Now, of course, we're going to be bringing over our wood in its normal form. So we're going to need to probably come out of here so that we can actually smoke it down into charcoal with the help of some lava that I'm going to grab from the power station. Yoink. And I'll make sure to throw down some copycat panels so that I can place some lava down, although apparently it places in the wrong position. We need to make sure it doesn't stream over. There we go. And we'll bring our belt through, take out anything from this barrel, And throw down another barrel along with a brass funnel extended out so that we can throw some charcoal on there to make sure that's the only thing going into the barrel. Then I more or less just need to grab our millstone, place that here with honestly probably just some item drains, couple of funnels, so that gets converted into black dye, and then bring this over here with some more belt to bring that into the side of here. If I just get everything powered, with that all hooked up, I think we can name this frog probably just black dye for now. And then I think I'm going to use a redstone requester. We are going to just put in black dye here. And then for the pure reason that I have way too much stripped pale oak logs right now, I think I'm going to use these as our request. So I think if I just put in, let's say 64 of this, I'm going to just place a stone button and then hit that. And then will that start coming towards what we need? I think I actually need to set this up with the stocklink stuff because I kind of forgot to do that. You can hook it up to this one. Place this down again, and I think if now I press this and we come fly over here, we can now see a box coming from our farm into there, and that looks like it is now starting to cook things. It is indeed being turned into charcoal, and that is now coming out with black dye and grey dye. So before I put a funnel out here, I'm going to place a smart chute down, put grey dye on it, as we don't actually need that right now, and I don't want it all backing up. Have a funnel coming off, and then place that into there. But I think I've just suddenly realized that the dark prismarine does not have a typical crafting recipe. It's in fact using the mechanical crafters. So oops, guess I'm going to have to rip this apart and change that system up a little bit. Okay, I switched that with a mechanical crafter. So if I throw in some more of these stripped pale oak logs to make our charcoal, hopefully that will start moving through here. And I was hoping that was moving into the center, but of course did forget to do this. So yeah, there we go. Prismarine is now going onto the outside parts and the black dye into the center and making what we need. Perfect. Now I think I'm going to just take these two directly into storage. So let's place a couple of vaults over here, and that's them two set up. Then as for this line, I of course need to get some crushing wheels. Place a belt line coming out of here with some crushing wheels. And that's going to produce lapis, XP, and copper nuggets. But I think I'm just going to put them all into the same storage system, because honestly I'm starting to realize that maybe I made this building a little bit too small, such as the life of building the factory before the stuff inside of it, but whatever. And there we go, that is now hooked up to this item vault. We already have some lapis and some experience in there. And that's pretty much the main setup for all this stuff. I think the only thing I want to do is, instead of having this button here, I want to place down a pulse timer and probably set this to like, I'm going to say every 5 minutes, so that we have a decent amount of wood coming in to turn into charcoal, and also therefore dark prismarine. And then maybe I might also double up the millstone here, which probably is going to require me to change the setup a little bit. I think doubling up like that is going to work. I ended up splitting the brass tunnel into two, putting the millstones off to the sides, and then we can dump straight onto the same belt. Now, as for the last kind of thing I want to do today, I would like to get this sea kelp farm running. I think I'm going to use a windmill bearing for it, as we can get this going relatively slowly. I'm going to bring this down into the water here, spread it out, and then put our harvesters in. And I'm probably only going to have it one high, maybe two high, to make sure that we get as much as possible. But kelp doesn't grow that quickly, so I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But I'll also make sure that this is all nicely glued together. And I think I'm going to use some girders along the sides, and making sure I put in a portable storage interface so that we can still pull out from it, and then come up with some kind of windmill design. Honestly, mostly using white concrete because I don't want it going too fast, although I think at least for the center part, I'll put in some wool. I think we need at least 8 of those to make it work. A turbine design that looks like that is probably good enough. I ended up just throwing the actual wool down here instead of in the turbine because otherwise the textures did match. But I think this is all glued together. So when I right click this, we are indeed spinning, although actually we are going the wrong way. So let me switch that around. It looks like we also missed some trapdoors, so I'll make sure to fix that. Okay, now we should be good, and that's going at a decent enough speed for what we need. Then if I come over here to where I've been growing my kelp before and just grab a bunch of it, I can more or less just come in here and just start spamming this down on the floor. There we go. And actually, one thing I did forget to do is place a barrel on this thing, so I think I'll just squeeze one in here. Then all I got to do here really is just bring a belt directly over and probably just bring that straight through the wall here. Now I'll make sure to put some of this weathered industrial casing on the belt so that it matches with the girders a little bit better. Then of course I need to cook the kelp, so we'll set up another system for some lava to sit in. And I think I'm going to keep it nice and simple and just place a barrel down with a brass funnel. We obviously can put our dried kelp in there as well to make sure that's the only thing going in there. And I'm probably only ever going to need a barrel's worth. I don't need a whole container for it after all. And once again, I think I'm going to just cover this gap up with a brass tunnel and then actually hook this up to power. And there we go. We already have a little bit of kelp in here getting cooked. Although I'm suddenly remembering it's not lava that we need. It's a campfire. And now that should be drying the kelp. Yeah, there we go. We now have some kelp starting to build up. Now I've gone ahead and decorated the inside of here a little bit more, added some broken bits of floor, you know, with some water in them, added some bridges over the belts, some fences, and I also added a bit of cutouts from the walls as well, both on the inside as well as some of the outside, including our little kelp farm on the side here as well. And oh yeah, I ended up expanding our flint makers because honestly we were certainly not making enough, so now we have 5 of them. And I also added an additional conduit cage to kind of keep up with all the flint coming in, just to make sure that we are actually making enough lapis and our different types of prismarine. Yes, overall I'm pretty happy about the design of this place. I think I could have probably improved the productivity of this factory a little bit if I had maybe planned it out ahead a little bit. But sometimes you just got to do things on the fly and learn from your mistakes. Yes, thank you everyone for watching today. I appreciate it. This is going to be my last video of 2025. We are already right at the end of the year. And somehow I've already been making YouTube videos for 6 months now, which has gone surprisingly fast. I certainly beat my original goal of getting 1,000 subscribers in a year. We're up to about 1.7k now, so thank you everyone very much for the support. And I'm kinda hoping to maybe get to 5k by the end of 2026. That might be a big ask, to be honest, but sometimes you gotta dream a little bit, you know? But anyway, once again, thank you everyone for watching the video today. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you, well, next year. Bye-bye for now.